let me start with Jefferson, right? You sit at the intersection of academia because now you are the final year of your PhD, and then you have successfully created two organizations doing well. Now, how do you believe that collaboration between Europe and Africa is going to help us strengthen the digital transformation in Africa?
Thank you. It's something I'm very much excited about. I think such collaborations will be very beneficial to Africans and African startups like mine. Look, African startups can bring or know about local challenges, right? And where Europeans actually have those technological resources. And those two coming together are always a very good mix. I would like to actually bring a practical example with one of my companies, which is Aya Tickets. Aya Tickets adopts the General Data Protection Policy, which is the GDPR policies for data protection. And when we started, we didn't really have any good framework to be based on apart from the European data protection policies. And this, in the long run, helped us scale, because when you have an event on Aya Tickets, you give an opportunity for people in Europe to actually buy tickets for an event before they even arrive. And Europeans also are bound by these data protection policies. So it's good for them to know that, look, Aya Tickets is adopting something which is already in Europe. Such collaborations with the local entities, like the local data protection in Ghana, would really help us fine-tune how even we can put a way amount on user personal data. I know the local industry has data protection, but it's not to that level of standard. Just imagine how much we can do with a very good collaboration. On a personal note, I have a bit of experience, or I'm lucky to have my education outside, and everything I have learned is what I'm actually being able to actually enforce here. So just imagine if that opportunity is given out to a lot of people. So if we have more collaboration, more things to do, especially with European institutions, I see as benefiting greatly.
Yeah, I agree with you, right? Because they have more advanced policies in this field. So, of course, our collaboration with them can rub on us.
Yes, certainly.
Yeah. Now, Abner, you are the CFO of Wahoo. And now we are talking about collaborations, right? What are some of the key financial challenges you see, right, to help those startups who are trying to come up with digital transformation projects in Africa? What are the real challenges?
Okay, so maybe I'll start off with exactly what happened with Wahoo as well. So I think for most startups, we hear or we perceive that the issue is capital. It's always we need finance, we need capital. We don't have access to finance. But what I've come to realize over the years is the access to the right type of finance, okay, the right type of capital and at the right time. If you're a startup and you're in this space, most likely it's going to take a while for your investments to yield some returns. So the type of capital that you need is not just any capital. It's not debt capital. It's not just any equity partner. You need patient capital. You need the kind of capital that will allow you to go through your research process, to go through that entire period of innovation till you get to the point where your company is viable enough. And so some of the key challenges are actually determining how to access the right type of capital and the right type of partners as well. So for instance, I am bringing this back to the Europe-Africa collaboration. Wahoo started with a partnership with a German firm. And that also opened the door for Wahoo to have access to a lot of European investors. And this is a very simple way that, this collaboration was able to help the company to access capital beyond what is available in Ghana. I believe that as startups, it's also important to look beyond just the cash capital. Jefferson mentioned technical assistance at some point, and that's really key. What technical assistance would do is that it will support you by reducing your costs. So you can find a partner that is willing to come on board with you to help you with some processes, to help you even accelerate your R&D process. So what you would have done in 4 years, paying, a whole staff strength of maybe 40, you could have a partner that would come on board in 2 years because they have that know-how and they've done it already before in Europe. You're able to shorten that period and, accelerate quickly into actually yielding something out of your investments.
Thank you very much. Just a follow-up question to you before I move on to Dr. Jones. You spoke about we being aware of the kind of financing we are going in for. How can a young startup in Ghana or Africa do that assessment if they want to go in for any funding from an investor abroad?
Okay, thanks. So that's a really, really key question. And I think the answer to that is one of the key things we are talking about today. It's research. Okay, you can do your personal research. There are also a lot of, accelerators, business accelerators around that are able to help. There's InnoHub. InnoHub is in Ghana. There's Impact Hub as well. There are platforms that will, put you together with investors. They will help you to build your investment structures. They would help you to put the right governance policies in place. They would help to connect you to other investors as well. So the key thing is research, get networked, get with the right associations as well. Jefferson is smiling because we've been having this conversation earlier. So
okay.
Yes, that's what I think.
Oh, that's good. That's good. So now, moving on to Dr. Jones, you have a strong background in sociology and social development.
Yes.
So how can digital transformation initiatives ensure that it is inclusive to be able to overcome the social-cultural barriers of adoption?
Okay, thank you very much. I think first thing is that we have to have localized solutions in spite of the contextual relevance that we have. Okay, so what is the essence of having research? What is the essence of developing digital tools that are not relevant to the context for which we want to deploy them? So most of the time, what people forget is that it is important that in the design of these tools, we look at the demography of the place for which we want to deploy them. Okay, a lot of times we say that the digital tools must even reflect the socio-cultural background of the people, sometimes even their language, their oral traditions. And now once we are doing that, we shouldn't also forget to have what we call digital inclusion, where those people that we think are very marginalized within the society, like women groups, like even, people that are physically challenged and all those people, we must include them in the design of those digital solutions. If not, we are likely to develop systems that are not relevant to them because they will feel very alienated by those platforms and they are not likely to even use it. In fact, look, there have been a certain system that I know somewhere that was deployed, and word went into the community that if you are a man and you interface with that platform, you are going to get impotent. And look, just by that word that went round, a lot of people boycotted that system. So a lot of the times, it is very important that when we are looking at deploying such digital tools, we have to look at the context, what I call contextual relevance, and localized solutions. Does this apply and solve the problem that really matter to the people within those communities? And I'm thinking that as part of the SEADE project, if you are to look at the research collaboration between Africa and then Europe, we shouldn't just import things from their place and try to just place them within our locality. We have to look at what is relevant for us and then build on it so that we can actually deliver tools that solve our unique contextual problems. So that is something that I want us to take note of. Thank
Good.
you.
I think contextualization is key. Now we have Evelyn Quartin online. Evelyn, can you hear us?
Hello, everyone. So my name is Evelyn Quartin, and I'm with the Africa Center for Digital Transformation. I have enjoyed the panel discussion, and today I'm really sad that I, couldn't join in. But two quick things that I wanted to, contribute to the EU and EU research. So there's something called digital innovation hubs in Europe. I think that's the research that I did back when I was in GIZ. And then a digital innovation hub is mostly like a consortium of a research institute, and then they act like a linkage between the public sector and the private sector. So then they develop all of these research in a particular topic. And like a typical example would be RISE, a research institute of Sweden. There are also quite a number of them, like DigiCare, and also Digital Innovation Hub Applied Artificial Intelligence and Cybersecurity. So what they do is that these are research institutions, then they do cutting edge research. And then when they do that, they try to enroll the private sector in. So then they give you opportunity to either test it, prototyping and all of that. So when they do this, the public sector, that's the government, tend to bring the funds. So that's what I wanted to say. The government tend to bring in the funds, and then the private sector also get to either pay for something. So there's this like triangle collaboration, and I think this is something that we should look at on the African continent. Now, the projects that GIZ enrolled had that part on the African continent. So there is one in Kenya, it's called the Green Digital Innovation Hub. And what it does is that it's a consortium of three entities. One is from the university, Jomo Kenyatta University of Agriculture and Technology. And then there is also something about climate enterprise. And basically what they do is that they try to provide solutions in agriculture, ICT, and energy. So because it's situated in the university, they do these research on, how artificial intelligence can revolutionize the Kenya system. What are some of the alternatives to, I don't know, like any subject, but on these three areas. And then when they do that, they try to, bring in the innovators. And most of the innovators are like university students who just graduated or in their final year and everything. And they try to develop digital products, and the Kenyan government is also on board. So this is one thing, as the discussion was going on, this is one thing that really came to mind. Now, as to how this connects to what we do at Africa Center for Digital Transformation. We also believe that research and innovation is really the driving force for digital transformation. So as part of what we do, we have the research associate community, and these are a group of young minds. Most of them are PhD students, and then or they just finished their PhD. And what they do is that they come together under the umbrella of the Africa Center for Digital Transformation, and then they do research, so they do cutting edge research on specific topics. I listened to the panel, and then one of them talked about cybersecurity. And I mean, in few months ago, we actually had like a press statement on, potential cyber attacks in the coming elections. And we also, had an event educating our audience that, hey, cybersecurity is something that is with us, and it's very important, especially now that everything that we do is digital. And then we actually had the Cybersecurity Authority in Ghana reaching out to us, wanting to, incorporate some of the recommendations we had. So this is what we do. I believe that the Africa Center for Digital Transformation plays such an important role in the entire value chain of the digital innovation ecosystem, both in Ghana and the African continent. Yeah, so these are a few things that I wanted to share to enrich the panel. Thank you.
Dr. Jones, just a follow-up on what you said. Is there any specific example you have, right, in the work that you've done in the area of education that promotes this integration and collaboration?
Yes. I mean, as someone working in the university, I remember during the time of COVID, and during the COVID, a lot of institutions have to shut down. The universities were not spared. It got to a point that, look, the whole Kenya University was shut down with the exception of one program, which was the development management program that was running an e-learning, a hybrid of e-learning and face-to-face. So when this shutdown came, they had to migrate everything they were doing onto the e-learning platform. And now the vice chancellor of the university was very happy to know that in spite of everything, there was at least one program within the university that was running. So what was happening? What were these people doing that, needed to be replicated? But then there was a challenge. We realized that within the university system, if you look at the demography and the characteristics of workers within the university, even university lecturers, there were a group of people in the system that were not technologically savvy. In fact, they were so scared of even opening computers. And that was so interesting. Because I was part of those that had to do the training, we were now faced with this kind of, situation. So sometimes we had to bring in other people, who could actually relate to them at their level and then collaborate with them and then teach them. So I'm thinking that, as I said earlier on, it is very important that if you want to deploy these kind of tools, the demography is one thing that we have to look at. It's a key thing that can actually obstruct everything we want to do in terms of perpetrating, the technology that we want to deploy. So it is something that I think that we have to look at very well.
That is very true. And I think you can pass on the mic to Jeff. Jeff, you have strong background in cybersecurity, IT systems. Now, how can research in this area be properly integrated into all facets of work and life to promote digital adoption across those sectors?
That's an interesting one. The problem with cybersecurity, especially in Africa, is we have a lot of theory and less practical. And I don't know whose fault that is, but I mean, the theory has to come first. The problem is that we're not really implementing them. Probably part of the items Dr. Jones said in terms of those systems, they're not built to even adopt to our own local environments. Yes. And maybe we'll bring back to the whole Europe question, which is we need to find a way to collaborate with them because they have so much experience with cybersecurity. Africa is now growing into, I don't know what the data is, but I'm sure 80% are now into the tech world. So we have to find a way to learn so much from them because they have that experience on tackling cybersecurity issues. There's so much that needs to be done. So the right institutions need to find a way to bring theory into practical. These things are very, very, very much important. I think I was telling Abna that my grandmother sent me a Facebook request that shows how much there's. That's when I knew there is nothing like there's a small number of less adoption. Internet adoption is huge in not just Ghana, in whole of Africa. So cybersecurity should be looked at in the topmost priority. So lots of government institutions need to start collaborating with the European institutions on how to actually effectively protect ourselves and also effectively manage our activities online. Because literally, I don't think there is anything that we do in Ghana right now without a financial aspect of it or without a personal detail aspect of it being involved. So just imagine if Bank of Ghana goes down, or I don't know, I'm not saying it will happen, but it shows the vast importance of it. And the European countries have so much experience when it comes to that. We haven't really been tested yet to that ability, which is something that is so important. I think in the past couple of years, we had a bit of a cyber issue with ECG. Even that, it wasn't shared. We don't know what happened. Something like that should be properly shared and see how best we can mitigate that in future. So these are very, very important things that we need to address. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Abna, this is just a follow-up to what Jeff has been saying concerning cybersecurity, IT systems, etc. You are working directly with the private sector, right? And the CFO. So how concerned are you over these things in relation to your employees and other customers that you work with at Wahoo?
Okay, I I'll say we are very, very concerned. As Jefferson mentioned, nothing happens without, a digital aspect these days. And at Wahoo, we have our own in-house app where we have a tracker. We can see where all our bikes are at every point in time. We know where all our riders are. We use that tracker as it's a source of truth. Everything that we do is on the app. Everything that we do at Wahoo is digital. So for us, it's very, very key. And even in the finance space, all your records, all your information, and everything that helps you to run the company is also on such an infrastructure. And you can imagine what happened, as he mentioned, the day, I'll call it the dark day that Ghana had no internet. Everybody was confused, everything goes off, and business literally comes to a standstill. So both from the financial and operational aspects, this is very, very key for us.
Yeah. Very good. Then just another question to you, right? We are talking about collaboration between EU and Africa. Are there some financial models, examples of financial models that have actually worked well by people collaborating between Africa and Europe? Like people adopting stuff from Europe down here in terms of financial models? Or has there ever been a situation where a model worked very well here and an European company or individual having to adopt it?
I like the inverse that you've spoken about, and I wish I had an example like that. I'm pretty sure there is. There are a lot of researchers in the room. I'm pretty sure we can find a good example of that. But yes, there are a lot of financing models that have worked from Europe to Africa. I think there's something very creative about the European financing models. Okay, it's not, I would say, just a straight up, we are investing in your company and here's the money. There are creative ways of going about it. There are, what I've come to realize, safe notes and convertible notes. These are ways by which the European companies and other foreign companies actually would invest in your company. And, it's not an immediate equity where they have a shareholding, but they literally give you the investment capital to work with. And over time, that can now convert into equity, or it gives you that breathing space to be able to pay back. And these are interesting financing models. I did a bit of research, ahead of this, and I realized there are a lot of, partnerships that are existing. I don't know how many of us know about it. There's a DFD, that's the Digital for Development platform, where, there are so many ways you can access finance from Europe. There are a lot of EU-related, finance options as well. So yes, I think there are a lot of, if you just go online, you'd find a lot of different collaborations that are working for us.
Right. Jeff, it looks like you have something to add.
Yes, I think it's, Abner and I were actually talking about it just before the panel.
I think you had a panel outside before you entered.
On how difficult it is to actually find funding locally. Mm-hmm. I'm sure there are people here who actually have startups. I for one, I have that experience of looking for a local investor, and they would ask you literally, I don't even know how best to put it. You get questions that you unimaginable, right? And I understand with our local investors, they think of so many things. They look at environmental factors, they look at local factors, they look at political factors. And sometimes that doesn't help in investing in startups. But you see, with the European capital, what's the word? Market, they understand the need for startups. They understand that this is a long-term thing. With the local, they expect their money back in 6 months. They expect revenue generation in a couple of months. It's true. And that doesn't usually happen because normally a founder can actually go and get funding for, let's say, 5,000. That investor is looking for their money back. A founder can actually go and get funding for, let's say, 5,000. Good. I'm sure someone didn't like the 5,000. But I think I got my point across, which is why it's so difficult to actually find funding locally.
I'm sure someone did like.
And the foreign collaboration is something that we're very much looking forward to.
Yeah, that's very true. Yeah, you want to add something?
Even within the academic field, you know, for research, yes, getting funding for research is quite problematic. I mean, from within. So if you look at a lot of the research we do over the period, we get a lot of funding from outside, from the Ford Foundation, you know, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, from Spencer Foundation and all that, you know, but to actually source funding for most of the research that we will say are locally relevant to our context, it becomes quite problematic. Okay, you write and write and write, and then there's nothing coming. And so the government felt that, okay, let's have what we call book and research allowance for university lecturers. In fact, the truth of the matter is that the money is so scanty that we've actually basically turned it into a building and roofing allowance, where immediately it comes, I mean, it's so scanty, because if I have to do research and even publish in an MDPI journal, or even some of these journals that we talk about, we have to pay somewhere around 15,000 Ghana cedis. And you are giving me a book and research allowance of just 30,000. So normally, it becomes very difficult for researchers to source the funds. And one thing about the European funding, I'm thinking that maybe going forward, this is what we have to look at, because once they fund your research, a lot of times they decide how the research is supposed to proceed. So you find that a lot of the time the research we do, that's why we have a lot of complaints from people outside that, oh, university lecturers do research and we don't seem to see the benefit, because those research is not for you. It is not for your contest. You are not the one that paid for it. The one that paid for it is focusing us on the things they want, and then we take it to them. So our government should do more when it comes to investing in research, giving us the money to do it and do it for our contest. Thank you.
Please send it to our government. This is a special plea. Yes, sure. Also the private sector. Yes, of course, that they contribute. You want to add something more?
That's very true, because we are looking at even partnership between academia and industry. Okay, so if you don't fund it, how do you want the universities? Look, some of us who had opportunity to study outside, our PhDs and even our master's state, our MPhils, were actually funded by some of these industries and companies. Yes. So once we finish our PhDs and even our, yes, they give us a PhD, they give us an MPhil, and then they take the research findings and go and implement it in their country. In Ghana, many of us here, I know probably I've applied to my university, KNUST, some are in Legon. They take the research findings. You are just applying because you just want to have a master's. And you come, we will also teach you. But then when it gets to the research part, even the students want to just do the research and get a degree and go. Okay? So sometimes they will say, the lecturer is delaying me. Now, the issue is that, are you doing the research for impact, or you are just doing it because it's a partial requirement of your degree? So these are the things you have to deal with. And I think that if we have correct structures in terms of funding, they can be more relevant.
Great.
I think I'm very happy you added the private sector. I think it's more of an institutional change and a traditional change. We need to try and change or fine-tune our mind generally to how we look at businesses or how we look at startups. And once everyone starts changing their mind or changing their thinking on how startups are supposed to make and what benefit they gain from it, I think we'll definitely go far in Africa.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing all those details. Now, Dr. Jones, you are in academia, and yes, like you said, there has already been some collaborative research done, yes, right? But how do you see the future of research collaboration between Africa and Europe?
Well, I think it's promising, because so far as I'm concerned within the university, we are trying to establish more international links and partnerships. In fact, I was discussing with my friend Hawa, how my university has set up a whole international programs office, just to make sure that we build those kind of collaborations in terms of research, in terms of funding and all that. But you see, we must also look at what I call knowledge and technology transfer. Mm-hmm. Okay, so as part of the collaboration, our partners must be ready to share their expertise. We must also be ready to learn from them because, let's be blunt, they are way ahead of us when it comes to deploying some of these tools, research tools and all that. So they must also be ready to share their expertise. They must also have what we call joint funding for us. And as part of that, we expect that they will use that collaboration to build our capacity. So even in the university, we expect that, look, those people that comes to us for collaboration, they help us to design more curriculum that is relevant to our context. Okay, so if it's about digital platforms, what is it about AI that it can help us to infuse into our curriculum? That can help our students, to upskill. Okay, we are looking at Internet of Things, even cybersecurity. These guys are way ahead of us. So we are looking at how best we can learn from them in terms of the knowledge they have, and then the ability for us to share. And they must also be ready to open up. Because let me tell you, some of us have this skepticism that even when they are trying to help us, they don't tell us everything. It is not everything that they are willing to share. They share only to a point. And then, yes, on a need-to-know basis. But then, if you really want to empower us, you want to build our capacity, I expect that going into the future, our collaboration should be very open, it should be very honest, and all of us from both sides must be willing to learn from each other. The truth of the matter is that some of our issues, probably they may not understand. So they must also be ready to learn. And I think that once we have that partnership of openness, of knowledge and technological transfer, and using that to build our capacity and improve on our curriculum, trust me, in the next few years, I see us, getting somewhere in terms of what we can use technology to do.
Thank you very much for those words. Yes, you want to add up? No, okay. So at this juncture, if you have a question, please feel free to raise your hands to ask. And then if even you have a contribution, do so. I see some hands already.
But before that, maybe I wanted to ask something when I was talking about the digital inclusion. I think more often than not, when we are talking about inclusion digitally, we forget women. We don't do a proper gender analysis. Okay. And let me tell you, there are research that have shown that when it comes to technology use behavior, men are more receptive to technology than women. And I'm thinking that within the African setup, it is something that going into the future we have to look at, especially even our research work. And I'm very happy that you can see that gradually there is a gradual shift, in terms of the attitude and adoption. Okay, so let's try and include women as part of our collaboration. Okay, in terms of the research we are doing. If we have to, deploy some of these things, let's whip up the interest of our women and let them be able to come into the technology and the digital space. It is something I really wanted to put out.
Yes, if you don't mind me adding that in terms of the transfer of knowledge. I think in the past, what has always happened is Africans going to Europe to learn and coming back to adopt. I'm a clear example of that. Maybe it's also time that Europeans also come here to learn from us. That way they'll learn and really understand the local challenges that we have. That shift might change. It's something that once we start getting them to actually come here, oh, okay, this is how it is, this is what you're going through, and this is what you're solving, and you're living that every day, it's way easier to understand the people. That's a very good question. Who is helping me answer that one? It's a lot of factors. Again, environmental, local, maybe the Ministry of Tourism needs to do better. I don't know.
Let me I can attempt that. You see, most of the problems we have actually, they are global problems that are shared. For instance, if it's about issues of climate change, if it's about food security, if it's even about health, okay? Recently, COVID came, and every person in every nook and cranny of this world was affected somewhere. These are global challenges that are shared, okay? So whilst we may have different contexts, some of the problems may not necessarily be unique to only one context. They may have global relevance. So in that case, they should not just say, oh, we are in our corner, And therefore, this is what we are doing. At least come here. If it's about diseases, you can also learn the tropical disease and then from what is happening within the temperate area. Okay. So I think that some of the issues is that we must see the problems as shared, as global problems which affect everybody. And that one alone should be something that should attract them to come.
Right.
Yes.
Yes. Thank you, Gideon. Yes, so my name is Stephanie, working for GIZ and at the Child Transformation Center. And I'm so happy, sorry to put you on the spot, Engineer Fugele. There was a session with him this morning on AI, and he was talking about European Union AI Act and how this will affect if you want to bring your solution to the market in European Union. And I really liked your contribution, like that it's a one-way road at the moment, and it's talking about how can solutions be brought to the market in Europe, and there's so much regulations where I'm sure this research collaboration can help, but you also mentioned the other way around, like people to learn. But I was wondering, this project and collaboration to also make it easier for solutions to enter the market in Europe and vice versa. How can it look like in practice? Like we talked a lot about funding, but how can collaboration beyond funding on really research and innovation aspects, helping to understand the market share, how can that look like? Can we hear examples of how we can implement it when we talk about research collaboration? What does it mean in practice? And how can that be in the two ways?
Dr. Jones' question.
Okay. Maybe can you please repeat it for me so that I can get a very direct.
So the question was that we talk a lot about entering market, and we talk about funding, but there's also so much to understand the market, to understand the environment we are in. So it's about research and collaborating on it in both sides.
Yeah.
For Africans to understand the European to understand Africa. But I haven't heard so much about examples of that collaboration beyond funding and beyond maybe working on market shares, like how to enter a market, but also starting from ideation, the whole aspect of maybe when you have a company, how can that collaboration look like? I mean, you mentioned maybe they have to come here, but how can that look like? Is it about them coming and spending some months here to do research here? Can we hear examples of that research collaboration implemented?
Thank you very much. I think, let me go, then you can add up to that. To give examples, I don't think there is any, unless I'm mistaken. And that's the sad part of it, because Europeans have to come here to actually see the practicality. And you're right, they probably have to spend time. It's not just a 1 month December holiday, December to remember holiday. We're talking about months, we're talking about even a year minimum, just to see the challenges. So there isn't any example, but I can give you the practicality, which is the European team coming on ground, looking at the challenges, looking at how the business day-to-day activity works. I'll give myself as a clear example with Aya Tickets, where we are an event ticketing platform. And if we had that type of collaboration, the team would come here, look at how event organizers carry out their day-to-day in putting an event together. On the event day, we see the challenges that we have at the entrance in terms of, you came through nicely through the entrance where you were able to sign in, get the scan done. That doesn't normally happen every day at each and every event in Ghana. It's normally quite chaotic. So there are different challenges that we go through. And a collaboration with the Europeans would be, they come in to see that for themselves and see what technological resources they can offer to even improve that service. I'm sure this, the entrance to we coming to this conference was really smooth. Trust me, you meet a European team, they can even think of 10 times more things that they can do with the help of AI, or more things that they can do just at the entrance to even improve on what we already have. So the practicality of it is very possible, and it's just, I don't think it's been done before unless I'm mistaken. But they come in to do it, it's really possible.
Okay, let me add something from the project that might be helpful. So the SEADE project is doing something that can be interesting in this field. For instance, it has what we call the twinning program. So the twinning program seeks to match an innovator in Africa with an innovator in Europe that is doing similar things. So if that goes very well, then they can share insights, share knowledge, and then provide networks and even access to markets. So that could be a good example of that situation you are asking about. Yeah.
Also thinking maybe we can have, the creation of some innovation hubs and some ecosystems, where we can bring your expertise in. They come and teach. They tell us what they want. We also tell you what we want. And then on the basis of that, we can use that to build the products that we want to deliver. So in that case, you are able to capture for the local relevance as well as what the other people want. In that case, when you're supposed to go into a market, it's very easy for us to scale it up, okay? Yeah, within the market. Because the truth of the matter is that a lot of the times, some of the tools we develop, it doesn't seem to have a lot of relevance outside, okay? Even locally. So I'm thinking that once we come, we study the people, we study their demography, what they want, we even do a proper market analysis. We'll be able to know what to deliver and how to design them to meet that market. So it is something I think we should be able to do. All right.
Let's go to a question here.
Okay, my name is Matilda. I think my question was partially answered, but let me ask anyway. So Prof. Jones made mention of the fact that international investment in our research work are relevant to them because they are investing. So if we are going to do a collaborative research between Africa and then Europe, how are we going to fill that gap? Because they are investing now, we are trying to convince the government and then private sectors to also invest in our research work. And then they are assisting with the investment too. So now we are doing it, both are investing in all. How are we going to fill that gap so that it will be relevant to both the European and then African countries?
So normally what we advocate is that we must be co-leaders. Okay, we must, for instance, African researchers have been encouraged to take a lot of lead role, especially when we are defining and conceptualizing research problems. Okay, more often than not, though you are funding it, we should be able to lead in terms of defining what the problem is and then being able to use appropriate methodologies that are relevant to our context. So for instance, even in funding, we must join them in terms of provision of funding. So the funding is coming in from them, but what are the other outlets from, especially the universities, that we can also do? So in Kenya University, for instance, what we've done is that though we have the foreign funding, the university has also created what we call Office of Grants and Research. And that is specifically internally generated funds from the university itself. So we have, for instance, the CREF funds or the CREF research grants, whereby if you have any research proposal within that is relevant to the Ghanaian context, bring it. The university is going to fund it. And now we are also going to advertise your project to outsiders so that if there are more funding they can bring in, they can also bring in and then we upscale it. So that is the kind of partnership we are trying to do so that it doesn't become like research is only led by people from outside, but actually we can be co-creators of our own research and then bring other people to come in and benefit. So that is what the investment, the model that KNUST, University, for instance, is adopting. Yeah.
Okay, I just want to add briefly to what Dr. Jones said. I think that's a very interesting business opportunity because I don't see a lot of collaboration between the private sector and academia. So even locally, as we try to get the local private sector to also invest in these types of research, imagine you have a company like Casapreco that wants to do some research into a new type of product, etc. We have all these researchers in academia. If there's a way they can, commoditize or, create a product whereby these companies don't have to go to all these consultants, foreign consultants, do a feasibility study for me. We have all these researchers in academia and they can equally do that. I think that will encourage private sector participation.
Thank you. I had just wanted to add to the previous question of the feasibility of the collaboration. Some practical examples could include what we would call apprenticeship program. You attach staff either from the other side to here and from here to the other side. It can be 3 or 4 staff to see how are things done the other side versus how are they done here. That's one of the ways. Then the other one can be through exchange programs, either of staff and students. It can also improve, and the both ideas could be shared in and bought in. Thank you.
But let me add something to the exchange. Maybe going forward, that was what I was discussing with Jeff. Going forward, we must also change our mindset. There are a lot of our students on exchange, they don't come back. Yes, the university takes them on exchange, we attach them to universities, they get there, for whatever reason, they stay, they don't come back.
They find something else.
It's something else. Okay, so these are real and existential threats, that we face, especially as a people.
No, it's a huge mindset change. And unfortunately, a lot of, I hope I don't offend anyone, bad citizens have really changed the way others look at us. And it's not just students. We've had so many issues where athletes go and
They don't come back.
vanish. It's very embarrassing. Very, very embarrassing. I can't believe I'm even talking about it because it's
Because
very
we're
embarrassing.
embarrassed.
Yes, because
Don't
it
do it
leaves
again.
and some of them are very selfish because you think, oh, okay, look, I'm looking for greener pastures. That's fine. I'm going to just don't come back. But that is a huge domino that actually affects everyone, every other citizen, not just students, businesses, startups. We all lose from it.
Great. Thank you so much. I have one final question for my panelists. Now, research works that are undertaken in Africa, are they really relevant to industry?
Well, obviously, based on what I've said over the period, you can see that we are not getting the benefit of the research that universities will do. The truth of the matter is that, as an insider, I have to be very honest. Yeah.
Your VC is not watching.
Yes. I hope my people will forgive me, but a lot of the research we do are basically to help us get the degrees and we go. Okay. And I'm happy that Kia University has realized that. So now what the university is saying is that, for instance, at the very top level, the PhD level, because we feel that if you have a PhD, it means that you should be an expert in that area that can offer certain solutions to the society. So what we are saying is that for every PhD candidate that you write your PhD thesis, you must be able to reduce your thesis into policy briefs. You must be able to have a way to communicate your findings to the society. So for instance, now the university has set up what they call research communication department. I think I shared it with you earlier on. We have this research communication department where we have to reduce the findings of our research into very easy and understandable, way for everybody to be able to understand and then derive the solutions that we want from it. Apart from that, the policy briefs are working. Because personally, for instance, I'm a criminologist, so I did my PhD on crime. I had to reduce my PhD findings into a policy brief and submit to the IGP. And it was on the basis of that 2 years ago, the IGP decided to visit KN University and even to deliver a lecture in my class. Okay, because of what he saw. And I'm very happy that some of the things I suggested within that policy brief, I see the police deploying them on the streets. Okay, and that is how I think that research is supposed to be meaningful to the society. So when it comes to the industries, I'm expecting that, look, industry must tell us in academia what they want. And now once you tell us what you want, you don't just sit down. You must also come with funding. Because let me tell you, research is not a joke. I mean, research that is supposed to be impactful and to create products and services. These are not joke. Okay, so you should be able to fund it. Bring money to us and let us do the job for you. Just as we did it when it was time for the COVID, they brought money to KCCR at Tech and also Noguchi Memorial Institute at Legon. And we were able to do a lot of research, did this sequencing of all those things. And at the end, we were able to help, contain the COVID here. That is the thing, the partnership we are looking for. But honestly, for now, many of you I know, Your theses are on my desk, on the desk of some of my colleagues as hard copy binding. And that is why I even suggest that, look, as part of the SEADE project, can we create digital repositories where we can put some of these things, where it will be very easy for people to access, even the industry to access, and use it to create the kind of product and content that they want.
I think that came out strongly in our baseline survey, and that's something that will be considered. Your final words, they say our time is up, so 30 seconds, two of you. Yeah, final words.
Okay, so final words, also just to touch on the research bit. I think the reason it's not very relevant in industry is because it's not up to date. So if an investor is looking for research information on any industry, they may find information up until 2020 maybe. So if it's not up to date, it's not very helpful. So in closing, I'll just say that I believe that the collaboration is very key. It's key because as startups, if we don't have the right environment to be able to even attract the type of investment capital, what we will get is that we will always be shortchanged and the investment will not be able to benefit the local companies. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, Jeff?
Yeah, and to add to that again, for these collaborations to be successful, we need a huge mindset change. And these are my final words, mindset change. Thank you.
Let's change our minds. Let's all contribute. Thank you all for coming. It's a pleasure being with you. Follow the SEADE projects on all social media handles. And you can leave your email addresses for those who are interested, those who are wearing the SEADE t-shirt. And then we'll follow up with you with all the activities that the SEADE project undertakes.